Transition to our topic of conversation this morning, and it's a story that's been making headlines for the last week. And the latest one in the Daily Nation reads, Ruto bid to hold Jubilee meeting hits wall again. And joining me to take that conversation forward is Charles Munyui. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show.
Good to see you again.
He is a governance expert, and also joining me this morning is Jack Okula, who is an advocate, but for the purposes of our conversation this morning is a political consultant.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you as well.
I've been well.
All right. So have you had a chance to read up on that story?
Yeah.
Ruto bid to hold a Jubilee meeting hits wall again. Is the media reading too much into this bid by President Uhuru Kenyatta to raise the borrowing ceiling to 9 trillion, set it at 9 trillion? Or do you think that there is something to that story that he went to Raila Odinga, and according to this Daily Nation report, that the DP had proposed a PG, and then President Uhuru Kenyatta, feeling blackmailed, went to opposition leader Raila Odinga and approached the Wiper Party to support that change to the law. Are we reading too much into it, or does it smell funny? Charles?
I don't think the media is reading too much in this. It's a very important thing for Uhuru Kenyatta to be able to deliver on what he wants to deliver. He needs that leeway to be able to borrow. And the amendment to the regulations, Public Finance Management Act, were very key for him because he wanted it at 9 trillion. And if you want to look at it critically, you'll see Kimani Ichung'wah, and you know who Kimani Ichung'wah is in the Ruto camp, wanted it at 7.5. Yes. But he was compelled upon to drop it and then move to, even Duale is on record saying the moment we realized NASA, for purposes of this conversation, was working with us in as far as allowing these regulations to pass, then we didn't see the need for any PG. So essentially what we're saying is there was meant to be a PG. And I don't think a PG would just come with issues of these regulations. This would pass in quick time, in amazing time. Then they would move on to other issues of Jubilee politics. And I think that is what Uhuru Kenyatta would want to avoid at a time like now, because the following day, the media, as we are talking about, would not even report about that issue of Public Finance Management Act regulations. We'll be talking about the issues that were raised at that PG, and it will be all messed up. So I think, to me, that was planned to be there. And Uhuru is working very well with Raila, and I think this is what the handshake was all about. If I need something passed and it's reasonable in as far as the country is concerned, let us work with your people in Parliament so that they can be able to pass it for us, can help us pass it. After all, those amendments are not purely Uhuru Kenyatta's amendments. They are amendments so that he can be able to access resources to turn this country around. Turning it is for all Kenyans, not just for Jubilee or ODM. So I think that working arrangement is what would work a few people. Maybe that was a setup so that they can have that discussion, and then it turns to a PG about purely Jubilee issues that to Uhuru for now are not things he wants to settle on.
All right. I'd like to welcome Javas Bigambo to the program as well. Happy to have you.
Great.
Now, Jack, do you agree with, as Charles says, that President Uhuru Kenyatta is avoiding a parliamentary group meeting? Not necessarily, and his avoidance, as Charles put it, does not necessarily have to do with this debt, the raising of the debt ceiling, but more about the other issues that have been plaguing Jubilee Party.
Well, Uhuru Kenyatta has avoided PG. I think since his re-election in 2017, Jubilee has never had a PG. But the question would be whether there is Jubilee in place so that they can even have a PG in the first place. What was the objective of Jubilee? And if they had achieved that objective, did it become factors official so that there will be no need for Jubilee again? He's avoided, for whatever reason, he has avoided PG, and being the party leader of Jubilee Party, PG need to be held for purposes of keeping house in order. The question is whether there is an house to be kept in order. In my view, there isn't. So ideally there are so many questions as to the debt ceiling, as to whether NASA would be working with Jubilee, as to whether Raila would work better with the Uhuru as opposed to Uhuru working with the Ruto. It's neither here nor there. The question is there Jubilee so that they can hold PG, And if they are supposed to hold PGs, they are a house that need to be kept in order. My question, or rather my answer to that, is in the negative. There isn't Jubilee.
Okay.
I think I have something to say about that, but later.
All right, so you're saying there's no Jubilee house to begin with.
I mean, there is no Jubilee house to begin with. I want to take you, or let me put it in perspective. Since independence, there are only very few political parties that have had national appeal. For all intent and purpose, KANU had a national appeal. You may fault it on so many things, but KANU did. Then, of course, Ford, before it split into different faults, and in recent times, only NAC, ODM. And then in 2017, it would have been extremely difficult because we had URP, which was seen as a Rift Valley political party. We had TNA, which was seen as a Mount Kenya political party. And then there is ODM, which had the national appeal in recent times after NAC. Only ODM had. In 2017, as Uhuru Kenyatta was gunning for re-election, it was apparent that it was difficult for any political party to match ODM. So they had to come up with something that has national appeal, and trying to bring URP and TNA together. All these other fringe parties, which were basically just handbag parties, were never here nor there. But it was TNA and URP forming Jubilee Party, purposely for the re-election of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Of course, William Ruto was the deputy president.
Yes.
After such re-election, I don't know whether the purpose of Jubilee ever existed thereafter. To me, it did not. I do not think that 2022 Jubilee will still exist, because its objective was very clear: for re-election of Uhuru Kenyatta, after which it became factors official.
Okay, you said handbag party, not even briefcase parties.
Briefcase, for want of a better semantic.
Javas, I mean, when Jubilee was formed, we were promised that this party will change the face of politics in Kenya. And this is not just, as has been customary, a vehicle to win an election. That this is about bringing the nation together, an inclusive party where everybody can feel represented. Have they lived up to that promise?
I know not what to say about changing the face of politics, because it is not certain whether that face was plastic surgery face or natural face, or a face with so much bad makeup. If it's a question of changing a face with so much bad makeup, they have actually lived up to that expectation. Because the kind of politics that has unraveled after the 2017 election is very different, contrary to the legitimate political expectation of some players within the Jubilee Party itself, and even within the nation itself. You realize that the in-house fighting, the squabbles, and the push and pull is what in fact is straining even the very political fabric within Jubilee itself. It is a big party yet nascent, and it is in fact getting it all wrong in terms of political housekeeping within itself. It's Lincoln is said, and in fact citing scripture, that a house divided cannot hold. Today, when you look at the frameworks of Jubilee, so little is holding it together. There is so little regard for one another, or even amongst the owners of that party.
But if you listen to Jackie saying nothing is, it's a non-entity as far as he's concerned.
That is what he's saying, that the expectation was so big, but it's failed to live up to its expectation. As a matter of fact, if Jubilee had really not just went for the election alone, it would have been a force to reckon with for so many years. Had they kept their house in order, but after the election, they decided there is no house, so there was nothing to keep in order. And for that extent, the much expectation that Kenyan had of Jubilee has since vanished, and because there is really no that house.
Okay, sorry, I can't Javas.
Yeah, sure. And I nearly choked with chuckles, I think last week, when I heard Kalembe Ndile insisting that the tip-tip part of Jubilee, yet of course, you know, they wound up all the other parties, saying that the tip-tip part of Jubilee will not support Deputy President William Ruto, etc., and many other views held by various players within that, the Jubilee Party. What is apparent to me and to any keen observer is that, one, all is not well. Two, there is so much regret amongst all former parties that wound up to come and formulate Jubilee. They in fact are wondering why is it that they cannot go back to Egypt. But you see now they crossed the Rubicon. Yes. They cannot go back unless they come out and form other new parties. The other thing is that, and this is reminiscent of the PNU in the Kibaki era, that when PNU was formed and then it achieved its purpose, it was no longer useful. In fact, it was just as good as an appendix in a human body. Now, looking at Jubilee as it is today, there will be little effort, if any, to have it properly structured, serious housekeeping, because, as he said, the purpose has been served already. And generally, as we all know, when an epoch is nearing its end, such signs always are manifest. And so, in the end also, we can start prophesying, if we wear such garments, that also the death of that whole entity called Jubilee, ultimate death and possibly cremation, is not so far from here.
Right. Those are their views. What are yours? My handle is at Obarrows. NTV's is at NTV Kenya. Jack's handle is at Okula. And then, sorry, Charles Munui, you'll have to remind me about yours. Is it at Charles Munui 4? Yes. Okay, the number 4. Yes. All right. Javas, what's your handle?
At Javas Bigambo. At
Javas Bigambo. Please join in the conversation. I will be sharing your views with my panelists this morning as well as the public at large. Now, Charles. Yes. DP William Ruto announced that they plan to hold an election so that the party is governed from the grassroots level, which was backed by the Secretary General, Raphael Tuju, who said, yes, we're waiting for money from the political parties fund. We've received the money, but it is the National Executive Council which can make any declarations as far as when an election will be held. And there are those from the Kieleweke faction who say the DP is as interested party, therefore he cannot be making proclamations as far as Jubilee elections are concerned. Is the DP, as he's been accused, trying to orchestrate a coup within the Jubilee party?
I think he loves the outfit. He loves the outfit and he would love to inherit it. Just go back a few years maybe. The way it was, everything was nice, everyone believed in Jubilee. People voted for Jubilee candidates across the country. I want to disabuse what my friend said. Jubilee is really huge in Parliament. They have the majority across both houses of Parliament. And it doesn't matter what we say about that. The bottom line is, in terms of numbers, if you go to the register of political parties, they have the numbers in all these houses. Having said that, I think essentially, this outfit was supposed to be for the long haul. But along the way, there are things Uhuru believes in. One being national cohesion and the bringing of Raila on board, or the coming on of Raila on board to have this discussion, act quite a number of people. And I think that is where we are. There are people who would like Jubilee as it is, extremely antagonistic, without due regard to any other political outfit there, and people leading those outfits out there. And irrespective of what the agenda is, they just want Jubilee for purposes of being a vehicle through which you ride into the next phase of politics. And that is where the problem is. There are people who just want it the way it is, work on it, put the right people in place for their own personal aggrandizement for in future, 2022, as it were. And they have no regard whatsoever for anything else that anybody else is pushing, including the president, on matters of national cohesion. And I think that is where the problem is. If we can be able to see it that way, and that is why William Samoei Ruto would like to have a PG. He would like to bring out those issues of Jubilee and the contestations on all the issues that are there, bring in issues of elections that to Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta are not of relevance right now, because there are other things that he wants to pursue that. And he, remember, he's gone public on this. He said he is in Jubilee, he's a member of Jubilee, he loves Jubilee, but the country is much bigger than the political party called Jubilee. And I think what he's trying to say is, where would we want to put a house in order, Jubilee in order, when the country is not in order on matters of cohesion? You've seen what's happened in Kibra. It started very well. Then all of a sudden, people are throwing stones at each other. And it was going on very, very, very well, by the way. Out of the blues, people hold a few meetings with their individuals here and there, money changes hands, and then that cohesion we thought we had achieved just flows through the window. So I think these are the issues. To me, the people interested in Jubilee are not for purposes of this country, it's for 2022. and what they can do with that party in 2020.
Yes or no? Do you agree with Jack and Javas that Jubilee is on its deathbed?
As it was a few years ago, it is going down, but that is not for me to say. Much as I'm a Jubilee card holder, but I don't see it survive. Let me tell you why it will not survive. When someone says the president elected on a Jubilee ticket is running the country is on autopilot, and your leader in parliament of this political party and its business in that particular parliament, what are you telling us? When you fight the PS, who is in charge of all these things that we are seeing, the police and the fight against corruption and everything, and you make it your agenda on a day-to-day basis, and you're a Jubilee person to fight that particular PS, you're fighting the government you put in place. A political party is purely for purposes of putting a government in place. So if the government is placed courtesy of that Jubilee and you're fighting it left, right, and center on every issue that arises, then what are you saying? You're actually the ones who are killing that party. So it's dead. It's not us. They are killing it.
Okay, Jack. And Jack, as you come back on. Sorry,
my relative here is just a bit shy of saying one thing, that if Jubilee were a human body,
Yes.
its main organs are dead. They have collapsed. So we're just waiting for the declaration.
Jubilee is
So you're saying it's
not on
you're
its
saying
deathbed.
it's
It is the arts of a mortician, if I may use the words of Professor Gito.
Wow, so beyond organ failure. All right. But before you come back on that, Jack.
Yes.
Charles, you've painted the Raila Odinga, former premier, as a sort of boogeyman. Is it a trite position? Is it a trite argument? Is Raila really the cause of division within Jubilee?
I don't think I want to clarify. I did not say that. I think I did not say that. Jubilee has individuals who are keen on 2022. End of story. So anything else that works for this country and does not necessarily work towards them achieving that particular objective will be labeled a problem. And that is why Raila is where he is in terms of the views by William Samoei Ruto and his friends and his colleagues. So it's not necessarily because Raila is doing anything wrong. And I'm not saying he's not, I don't know. All I'm saying is the perception out there is that as long as this man is close to Uhuru Kenyatta, then we have a problem, and everything must be done to ensure that does not happen, in terms of perception, in terms of reality. And that's why there's a lot of activity. Even today, Kibra all of a sudden is about Raila and William Samoei Ruto. I don't know where that came from, but it just happens. Even after Uhuru met the candidate, Kieleweke and Tangatanga just moved base to Kibra, and they settle there until maybe these elections are over, and then they'll move elsewhere. Look at it and you'll see. It's not really Raila is a problem.
Jack, is Raila Odinga at the root of Jubilee's problems?
Let me start from the questions that we were to respond to. One, that William Ruto is right. The party ought to have an election, because the law is very clear that after 3 years, if the political parties leaders are holding such positions on an interim basis, then after 3 years, the lapse of 3 years, they need to get leaders in place. Tuju is also right to the extent that the person who is supposed to make decision on that and communicate that is NEC, as opposed to the deputy party leader. But all of them are wrong to say that they are interested individuals who should not be making such sentiments. If you don't have any interest and you are in a political party, political parties are not church board. Every other person has an interest, be it the deputy party leader, including but not limited to Uhuru Kenyatta, who is serving his last term in office, is interested. Even if he is not going to be a candidate, he would still be interested in 2022, who becomes the president and who does not become the president. As to whether Raila is the problem or not, Raila is just a politician, just like any other politician. And remember, after 2017, immediately Uhuru Kenyatta got re-elected and is serving his last term. Every adult of sound mind has a constitutional right pursuant to the Bill of Rights to choose which political formation they are going to. So in 2022, there are going to be political formations. There are people who would want to work with Raila, and Raila, of course, any other who would not want to work with Raila in this country, be it Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto. Any other person would want to work with Raila Kenyatta. And Raila Kenyatta, Raila is not the president, not the deputy president.
We are examining the divided house of Jubilee. We have Janet in Kisii County. One quick second, let me just verify those details. Yes, Janet Nyamwamu, who's joining us from Kisii. Janet, what do the residents there have to say on the way forward for the Jubilee Party?
Well, I'm here in Kisii County, County 045, and the residents here are going to give their views about the political climate in Kenya.
My name is Nunda Hadam Seth. I'm the chairperson of Gusii Young Professionals. I want to comment about the current political atmosphere in the country. And I have this to say. The current political atmosphere is in what we call an anxious mode, because whereas we are a good handshake between His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, which united the country and made business blossom, made peace and all things work in the country, there is another new dimension that is coming out. There is anxiety concerning the BBI report and what it contains. And from the same, there is a lot of political pressure from the Deputy President of this country, who has really perfectionalized on the heart of campaigns, early campaigns, who is campaigning on a seat that is not vacant. And I think the IBC should come clear and summon the Deputy President for campaigning before the campaign period is there. And we want to say that even the church itself has been divided through these political movements of the Deputy President. In fact, he has achieved in dividing the church more than Satan did, and it concerns us, we as the residents. But basically what we want to say is that it's our belief and hope that the BBI report will cover on issues of inclusivity on leadership, divisive politics, and a progressive agenda for all the people, including youths, women, and persons with disabilities in the country. Otherwise, we also want to call for the President to heed to its call against corruption. Even Safaricom itself, being the most successful company, is not able to offer the monies that the Deputy President is offering. It's clear that it's a corrupt agenda. He has been able to give a false hope to our people, a false hope to our politicians, and we want to call the President and the Right Honorable Prime Minister to give direction to this country. Otherwise, we as the residents of Kisii, we support the handshake. We are fully behind it, and we are waiting for the recommendations of EBI. What they will give, we will fully support.
And now whatever the people here are saying, they are supporting the handshake and the BBI report. And I have another resident here who is going to say what he's thinking about.
Okay, my name is Jubilee Parliamentary Group, youth leader from Kisii. My take is, as it stands now, Kenya at large, we are in a problem whereby leaders, they are not serious on supporting youth agendas. Like now, to go back a bit, the president said categorically that they are supporting and they'll deliver money to counties for contractors to be paid. As we speak now, contractors are really struggling to get their due. Now, instead of our deputy and the president coming together to ensure our country moves forward, now they have changed the topic, the tune. Now it's all about early campaigns. People are going to campaign. Now, the other day I had the deputy president saying that he's not supporting the BBI, the handshake. The entire nation, the Kenya at large, we are supporting BBI. We are behind the president and His Excellency Raila Odinga.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, you've heard what the people here are saying. They support BBI, the handshake, they want peace, and that is it from Kisii County.
That is Janet Nyamwamu speaking to young professionals in Kisii County, and they say it's a bit too early for all these campaigns. We should be focusing on development. Now we cross over to Migori County, where we have Bernard Ojwang. Bernard, what are the views of the residents in Migori County?
Well, thank you very much. We are here in Rongo town, just as you said, Migori County. When we are talking of the state of political state in the country, we are currently talking on the recent incident that took place in Kibera. That is Kibera by-election campaigns, where where two political rivals, supporters, attacked each other, and of course you've heard from Jubilee leaders demanding the nullification of Ken Okoth's brother, Imran Okoth, from the race. They are saying that he's the one who, his supporters started the chaos. And also, you've also heard from ODM leaders saying that Imran Okoth, Ken Okoth's brother, should not be blamed over the incident that took place in Kibra. And of course, we've also been getting the issue of Punguza Mzigo and also BBI, with some leaders saying that all county assemblies should drop the bill, that is the Punguza Mzigo bill, that it has got no good motive for Kenyans. And currently we are just going to talk to some of the locals here in Rongo town just to tell us what do they think about the current state of politics here in the country. Join me. You'll start with the name. You saw what happened in Kibra. What do you think? Do you think it might affect the handshake that was there between the ODM leader Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta?
My name is Evans Scholar, but I think the incident that happened in Kibra will not affect the handshake because of what happened there is as a result of political euphoria. People are struggling to ensure that their candidates win. And even if His Excellency the President supports his candidate, he's doing that from the mandate that is the Jubilee chairperson, and he must bring his house in order. Raila Odinga must also on the other side ensure that the ODM carries the day because he's also taking the position in the ODM. So I think the idea of the handshake and building bridges initiative, there is no complete connection with their parties. Everyone must ensure that their house is strengthened, number one. Number two, the handshake must go on because it is attached to different ideologies and things that they want to focus as a nation. It combines the nation ideas, and the ODMs keep Imran and the other.
Some Jubilee leaders were demanding the nullification of Ken Okoth's brother Imran from the race. What do you think? Do you think it is a good idea?
It is a good idea. We live in a democratic society. When you think something is not good enough, you run to the court, then the court will give out its outcome. It is obvious that when you think that something is affecting you, you go to the court. That is the best option that they are using, going to court rather than revenging physically. That can lead to mob that can interfere with the peace in the country.
The BBI, what do you think about the BBI? Because we've had leaders, the MPs are campaigning against the BBI. They are saying that it is not good for Kenyans.
There is something that is going on in this country that is called Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is where you think that if you hold on one person will automatically help you, even if this person you've realized is a wrong person. So the Stockholm Syndrome, we must do away with it. We must have something called the DNA transplant, because we are doing politics as the backbone. Instead, the energy that we are using in politics, we should be using in agriculture. But now, if they are taking it that way, everyone has the right to support, but they are doing this because of the political parties.
Well, thank you very much. You've just heard from that man. They are saying that they are really supporting the handshake, and also saying that the wrangles or the campaigns of the by-election that's currently going on in Kibra has got nothing to affect the handshake between Raila Odinga, and also they are saying that the BBI is as a good day. The BBI is the way to go, and also appealing to county assembly leaders also to bring it down. And also remember, they are also been saying that the fight against corruption has been really helped. It has also been achieved because of the handshake that was between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta.
Baranga, who is at the Kenya School of Government, where the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, is holding a consultative meeting on the administration of the 2019 national exams with regional coordinators of education, county directors of education, and sub-county directors of education. Sharon Baranga, this event was slated to start at 8:30. It's 2 hours later. Has the Education CS spoken, and what assurances has he given as far as the administration of the exams is concerned?
Yes, Olive, we are currently at the Kenya School of Government, and we are waiting for the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, to give us a briefing with regards to the preparation of the national exams that are set to begin from the end of this month. He has been here from around some minutes to 7 a.m. and is held up in a meeting, a consultative meeting with his counterparts from ICT and Interior, and they're just planning on how the exams are going to be conducted throughout the exam period, which is set to begin from the 28th of October, when Class 8 candidates will be sitting for their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education. And then on the 4th of November, the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education candidates will begin their exams. Currently, we are at a tent at the Kenya School of Government, and it's full of education officials from across the country who are here, and they are waiting to be briefed from the Ministry of Education. Now, we are told that the minister will be walking in here any moment from now. Everyone is here waiting for him, and recently the ministry has been warning teachers who are accused of aiding exam cheating. And you can also remember that in the previous years, the numbers of candidates who were accused of exam malpractice has drastically reduced, even as the ministry put some measures to ensure that exam cheating does not happen. Back to you, Olive.
Thank you, Sharon Branga. It's a packed tent there, of course. National exams being of great national importance. Another subject that is of great national importance, as always in Kenya, we eat and sleep politics. That's what we are discussing this morning, and I'd like us to start winding down this conversation. With me is Charles Munyui. I'm also joined by Jack Okula and Javas Bigambo at Charles Munyui 4, at Okula O, and at Javas Bigambo on Twitter. My handle is at Obarus. Looking forward to reading your comments and getting a sense of what you think of the political atmosphere presently in the country. We had from a few gentlemen there in Kisii, and also from Migori County, where you say you're from, Jack. And there's the gentleman there who was saying we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. But I cut you short before we started covering these live events.
Yes.
And we're talking about the divisions within Jubilee Party, and I'd asked, is Raila Odinga at the root, or is he being cast in the role of boogeyman to serve the political ends of William Ruto's camp?
If I may have to emphasize what I had said before you cut me short, one, that the political parties, once they have the interim leaders, after 3 years, they need to have leaders in place. So that extent, Jubilee or whatever party it is, need to hold their elections to have leaders in place. Two, that it is NEC that is supposed to be communicating this and supposed to be holding this election. That is true, and it is in law. Three, that all the players in a political party have interest, so you cannot shut down someone because they are interested parties. Even NEC is an interested party. Ideally, there is no one who is not interested. Now, let's come to whether Raila is in the bedroom of Jubilee and whether is the one who's breaking Jubilee. One, that after Jubilee had gotten re-election in 2017, remember I said that it was formed purposely for the re-election of Uhuru Kenyatta. All the political players, including but not limited to Ruto, they know this. And these political instincts and tenors would remind him that there would be no Jubilee going forward. What all the political players, particularly the ones in Jubilee, are doing is to navigate the political parties act. Remember that if you were to resign from Jubilee and form another political outfit, then it is deemed that you have resigned from your party that is sponsored you to parliament or to whatever position, and to that extent you need to resign from your position as well. So they are working with this, knowing only too well that Jubilee doesn't exist, but for them to be able to navigate the Political Parties Act and any other enabling law and legislation in Kenya, they would just stick to Jubilee and pretend as though it is a party, it's an outfit that exists, and they want to hold PG going into 2022. And in 2021, you're going to see a raft of resignations, a raft of people moving from their political parties and going to form other outfits. And I believe that the DP would probably form an outfit. Having said that, Raila Odinga is a political player. Uhuru Kenyatta is a political player, and so is William Ruto, who are the major political players in Kenya as it exists currently. And so any other person, Uhuru Kenyatta included, would want to work with Raila. And remember, after his re-election, he had no obligation to continue with this Jubilee affair. Probably just moral obligation. He had no obligation to continue working with Ruto. He had no obligation to continue working with Raila, and so on. So you cannot blame Raila Odinga for the squabbles, for the tragedies that have plagued Jubilee Party. They are the authors, the furnishers, the finishers of their own tragedies. They are supposed to keep their house in order. There is no single position that Raila holds in Jubilee. He's just a political player and would want to work with just about anybody in Kenya. If fortunately, unfortunately, he's working with Uhuru Kenyatta, he could work with William Ruto. So you cannot turn around and say that it is Raila who has been playing Jubilee, because Raila is a leader of ODM party of Kenya. And in this ODM, they also have their own issues. So if you're blaming Raila for the problems in Jubilee, I mean, what about the problems in ODM? Who would be blamed? So, I mean, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, that if they still want to work together and if they still hold dear to their hearts this party called Jubilee, they need to sit down, have their PGs and put their house in order. But I remember saying that there is no house to be kept in order. So let it take its course. In 2022, we have different political formations. But I am reminded that, and I stand by that, that Jubilee Party, had it lived up to the expectations of Kenyans and also the objective of having, you know, a lasting felicity as a political party, it would have even exceeded the expectations of Kenyans. It would have been a force to reckon with. Probably the KANU of yesteryears, the NAC of yesteryears, or even the ODM of 2007, because it had a national outlook. It had so many supporters. No single political party other than NAC and ODM has ever achieved that. But after the re-election, of course, its purpose, it had achieved its purpose, and I do not see Jubilee going forward, save for the fact that the leaders have to be there to save their jobs and to save their positions.
Okay, Javas. Is Uhuru Kenyatta making a mistake by not holding a parliamentary group meeting, by not confronting these divisions head on? Because those who, you know, the view is that, oh, he's so focused on his legacy and on development, and he doesn't want to encourage these early campaigns. Is he making a mistake by not holding a parliamentary group
By
meeting?
way of the office that he presently holds and being the leader of his party, I can say that his body could be willing, but his spirit is weak. Because the kind of technical balance that he has to play between holding the handshake in shape and in place and keeping the faith that began on March 9th, and balancing also his political interests and those of his deputy, is a tricky balancing act that only somebody close to a magician can perfectly handle and satisfy both sides. The fact that he cannot satisfy both sides, he has now to act coy as he is. By way of omission, already it shows that technically he's just trying to be slippery through the entire moment. And actually what he may fail to appreciate is that he could just rise and step in the gap. And one thing, he would go down in history as one of the greatest presidents ever, beyond just managing the politics of his party and his moment, also now seeing how to tie that to the leadership that he has to offer for Jubilee and the Big Four agenda. Nonetheless, the political sociology of Kenyan politicians is quite confounding, intriguing. In fact, I have no fitting, tragico-phrasal superlatives that I could use.
Wow, in English, please.
Maybe only Shakespeare could in his time, but now he's away from us. I would say that what continues to convolute the political landscape that we are in is narrow political perspectives, narrow political interests, short-sightedness of our politicians, and also the manner in which, and that's why he said a political sociology, not just for the leaders and by the leaders, even the led, the ordinary citizens. That now, by way of that socialization, we have come up with certain limited expectations that any grand thing, we would see it out of the normal. That when intrigues bedevil us or bedevil a political party, we see it, in fact, as normal. In fact, that is fodder for us. It is fodder for politicians. They think that they derive genius from creating chaos and destabilizing even their own houses. Let's face it. What we need right now is a demonstration on the part of President Kenyatta that actually issues that he has to face with matters parliamentary group of his Jubilee are not things that he's shy to handle, because it leads to that housekeeping issues we're talking about. Now, we know very well that there is varying faith and trust. In fact, I can say that trust has seriously glaciated amongst the Jubilee stalwarts. That those who are the believers, the supporters, political supporters of Deputy President William Ruto would hardly see eye to eye with those now of President Kenyatta. And that would make a parliamentary group meeting very heated. A bit of discomfort, unnecessary discomfort. There have been also reports in the media in the not too distant past that the president has avoided the deputy at the airport, etc. and whatnot. Now remember that such kind of media reports cause political constipation amongst various quarters. Let's not imagine that by way of the president only calling for a parliamentary group meeting and him being the head of that party, and remember how some key leaders from the Rift Valley have been using words and making proclamations that are not quite respectful of the presidency and the president himself, then it means that there will be, already there is bad blood, but there will be so much tension and so much heat if such a meeting was to be called. And that's why perhaps the dictates of wisdom would be that the president should act coy and be shy of calling and sharing such a meeting.
Okay, but will the BBI report, which based on media reports again, will come out around Mashujaa Day, do you think the BBI report, Charles, will bring matters to a head?
Just before he responds. Now look, we as a nation are supposed to be united by, in fact, greater calling and greater inspiration and aspirations contained in the Constitution, for example, values, etc. and whatnot, which ashamedly even our politicians are not keen to abide by. Will we and will they abide by just a report? A report.
All right, I'll let you take it up from there. Will they abide by a report? But also to my original question, which is that will the BBI report bring matters to a head?
I think the issue of BBI has been trashed and supported on equal measure, if you ask me. And I think that's why we have a problem. Even before the report came out, even before people started working, everyone knew what the report is going to be contained in the report. And that's why we are here. That's why we had all this talk about we don't want BBI, even before people knew what it was all about. But if you pick the 9 points that we are talking about, if we are talking about matters corruption, and I know we have the law, we have all these things, we have the constitution, we have the law, we have other players that are supposed to help us in that regard. Has it been working? And when someone sends it out, Uhuru Kenyatta, leave Raila out of it, could have decided, this is how I'm going to deal with corruption. He could have decided, in terms of supporting devolution, this is what I'm going to do. Redistribution, so that people in Turkana are not hungry when people in Nyandarua have too much in plenty. He could have decided, this is what I'm going to do about it. So when he puts it out there in the public domain and expects a report that suggests whether it's an issue of policy that needs changing or an issue of the law or the constitution, so that we arrive at dealing with these 9 objectives that are shared, so to say, between Raila and himself, and by extension Kenyans across the country, then you find everyone trashing it, left, right and center, including the deputy president himself, either directly or through his colleagues. And that is where, in my honest opinion, we have a problem. Now, having said that, the BBI, largely will be about the report that we receive and how it's acted upon. And we have seen an Uhuru Kenyatta of late who is doing things that he's promised to do. We have seen him fighting corruption in spite of a lot of objection from people left, right, and center. We have seen Kenyans now starting to believe and see that corruption is not perpetuated by green men from Mars, short ones. It's actually Kenyans, your neighbors, people that you know driving very big cars, your colleagues, both in ODM, in Jubilee, whatever you call it. But there are people who are ganged up purely because they would not want that work. And a lot of versions of why the George Kinoti should not be doing this, should not be doing the other one, or the DPP should do it this way, the traditional way we are used to seeing it done. Now that this big boss, why would you do it this way? It should be done this other way. My take is this, and as far as BBI is concerned, if the report comes out, when the report comes out, because it's going to come out, people are going to interact with it. And luckily now, I don't see Punguza anywhere in the mix. So I think now there is clarity of issues. In terms of amendment to the Constitution, if it has to come up, it will come through this particular process. And I think it's a question of timing, if it is there, because we don't know. Nobody knows. Secondly, if it's an issue of policy, a policy issue, then I expect Kenyans will contribute to the same. And I know through social media and mainstream media, we're going to have a lot of information on how to move forward. The beauty about BBI is that it's not closed up. It's not like it's fixated that we have to behave in a certain way. If it's about amending this or the other one, at the end of the day, it has to be subjected to the provisions of the Constitution, Article 255, 256, and 257. Nobody is going to amend the Constitution from South Africa, as people are, saying out there. It is going to be amended through the provisions of that are there in the Constitution. So my take is this: BBI is going to help, and the 9 issues that we're talking about, as long as they are put in the right perspective and Kenyans are taken through them, because the problem again is issues communication. BBI went quiet. They have a lot of money. They have a secretariat. Who is talking? Who is saying anything? Who is giving us timelines? Who is talking? Nobody. Everyone is so dead about, and we need, much as the report is being done, we need to see these people even coming here and saying the progress and moving forward, what happens, because there is a lot of misinformation and miscommunication out there. Okay. Nobody is saying anything. So when it comes out and proper communication is done, because I think that is really key, people will know what's going on and they will understand what BBI was all about, so that we clear all this and then we see how we move. Already you've started people saying there might be no amendment to the Constitution. I don't know where that is coming from. Then all of a sudden you hear someone from the other corner of the country saying there is going to be the Constitution going to be amended, because some of these things that we are pushing for, they have to come through a process of amending the Constitution. So it is a question of how is it communicated to Kenyans or recommunicated to Kenyans, because in the first instance, there was total failure in terms of communication on matters BBI.
Communication
yes.
failure. Jack,
yes.
The way things appear, it's like President Uhuru Kenyatta tuned out, these comments that are coming from factions within his party, and it was background noise. But with the BBI report, will he be forced to finally call his house to order?
He does not have to call his house in order. A BBI will receive massive support. And I want to take you back to history. Since independence, there are only 2 issues that Kenyans have been fighting about. One is power. 2 are the revenues. Whether we are collecting taxes from all Kenyans, but the revenues are concentrated at a place, probably in Nairobi and maybe the environs. Now, with the devolution, despite its teething problems, we are finding a solution to distribution of resources. So the only thing that we are having issues with, and for which probably Kenyans would still fight, is power. Even in the East Africa community countries, Uganda as a prime minister, deputy prime minister, we don't even know who that person is. So is Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi? Is Burundi still having a prime minister?
Who is Museveni's deputy?
I am not sure. We don't know these people, but there is an interest they serve in government. And for Kenyans, we have not really detribalized our nation to the extent that if, for instance, a Kikuyu is not at the apex of leadership, that the Kikuyus will be pacified. They may not be pacified. So the issue that we probably need to devolve, and Kenyans probably every other segment of the nation, be it for religious purpose, for ethnic purpose, would be to devolve power. And devolving power, probably we need to expand the executive or the structure of governance so that every other interest is taken care of, or at least a majority of this interest. To that extent, BBI probably might receive massive support. Punguza Mzigo, of course, is dead. I said here before, and I still repeat it, Punguza Mzigo, you probably might just discuss it for its nuisance sake, but it was not added anywhere. Anyway, and Kenyans are really keen on who is going to be at apex of the structure of government, and also the fight against corruption. They are really interested to know whether corruption would be fought at any level. In 2013, 2017, before the handshake, and I need to be very clear on this, it was very difficult for a Luo, for a lawyer, for a Kisii, for a Kamba to get any meaningful government job without direct affiliation to either Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto.
Sorry, and sorry to interrupt just briefly, but the pictures on the screen are from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where families are presently situated to receive the remains of their loved ones who perished in the March 10th Ethiopian Airlines crash. Yes, Jack.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that the majority of Kenyans would want to figure out that if we are going to have BBI and support for it, then any other Kenyan would be able to somehow get government appointments, government jobs, and certain opportunities. That extent, Kenyans would support BBI. And the reason why we are seeing many problems with Jubilee and not ODM. ODM has its own problems. But the biggest achievement of ODM is that there is only one leader, that is Raila Odinga. In Jubilee, you may want to say Uhuru Kenyatta is the party leader and William Ruto is the deputy party leader, but they rank in pari passu as far as political stand is concerned. So they are two political leaders. They are two party leaders. You may want to call the other deputy, but they are two political party leaders with probably the same constituency. Yes. And this means that the supporters of William Ruto will be feeling agitated any time a decision is made without the leaders' involvement. For Raila Odinga or ODM for that matter, he would simply make a decision and everybody will be agreeable to it. The deputy party leader, yes, the deputy party leader is Joho. Which constituency has Joe? Or Paranya. They don't have constituencies or meaningful constituencies, but you cannot take William Ruto for granted. And so you would be talking about a PG, but the bigger PG is just a legal balance. It is a legal balance. It does not serve any political end. The only PG Jubilee needs is for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto to sit down and say, tell your people to do this. Let us agree as leaders. And this is what we are going to do. Ruto will simply would take his phone, send a text message to all his MPs, and they will go by that. And so is Uhuru Kenyatta. And so is Raila Odinga.
So it comes back to the two of them being able to sit down together.
To the two of them. It is not about Murkomen. It is not about Chongwa. It is not about, who is this Kieleweke guy from Nyeri?
Maina Commander? Or who?
Whether it is Maina Commander. It is not about them. All that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto needs to do is to sit down and say, we have agreed. Now let us tell our people what direction we have, and they will do it. Raila does not need to go to Parliament and whip his MPs. He only needs to send them a text message that today we are voting for Finance Bill 2018. And all of them, just a few of them that might want not to go that direction, but even the few that may not go that direction, they would still sneak to Opoda Farm or Karen and plead, party leader, I erred, please forgive me. So the PG, the biggest PG that Jubilee would need is Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. They must take recognizance of the fact that William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta have virtually just the same constituency, or at least they rank in pari passu as far as political stand and political capital and social capital is concerned. No one ranks above the other, save for the, the semantics of positions.
Where my brother has gotten that from. Because I have a problem with
Let me-
with issues that cannot be scientifically proven. Number
Let
one,
me- okay, let
if
me
it's a
bring in
question of
Javas.
the number
Javas
of if it's a question of the
Javas
number of
hasn't weighed
MPs
in
that
on-
Uhuru has
Javas
brought, you cannot
hasn't
compare.
weighed
You
in.
cannot compare William
Javas-
Ruto to Oparanya, for instance.
Javas, what's your opinion?
I would say this. You know, where I come from, we always say that upon the birth of a child, where the umbilical cord is buried, signifies the really origin of that child. You can say that's where it was buried and I come from that place. When Jubilee was born, the umbilical cord was burnt. So the home has no particular origin. All right? The previously, the strands of initially intended hegemonic rule and leadership of Jubilee have begun to strain and are nearly tearing. It was intended that upon the ascension to power of His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and completion of his epoch, Deputy President William Ruto would take over. We are seeing that the lack of wisdom has made some people try to change or swap horses midstream. So always said never change horses or swap ships midstream unless there is a tragedy. Here we are seeing that people are swapping horses midstream, and that actually is the culmination of will be the culmination of the end of Jubilee. Thing is this: it has been weighed in by every thinker, political, legal, etc. And even some psychologists have ventured into the debate and invited. But what is obvious is that the center can no longer hold. The center will not hold unless some new imagination happens.
Okay.
That imagination will not even come to happen until, for example, the interests of now the two, because there is a new child that was born on 9th of March. That child, illegitimate as it is very significant.
It's a child, nevertheless.
Yes. And what we are seeing is that likely, as I've opined before, that stepchild is going to take over the birthplace, the initial birthright, the inheritance of the firstborn, who is William Ruto.
Okay.
So the father now, of course, has been, challenged, to this new reality, and that's why you're seeing William Ruto boldly challenging Raila Odinga to a duel. Raila Odinga has not taken the bait, because I'm sure with his timing, he wants to wait. What is it that will come off the BBI? And upon the report of the BBI being promulgated, what will be the position of Uhuru Kenyatta in all this?
Okay, and permit me to end the conversation at that point, but a very interesting biblical analogy. We will pick it up. This definitely is not ending anytime soon, at least not in the foreseeable future. Jane Migori and Salim Swalempo, they're at the Langata Barracks. They are going to bring us NTV Sasa live from that location where the 8th Kenya Defence Forces Day is being held. We witnessed the CS Defence unveil a plaque and a monument in honor of our fallen soldiers.